right, fellas, let's take a trip down memory lane for our last topic. Last football memory we have is Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in Atlanta back in February. That closed out the 2010's decade for Super Bowls. Let's go ahead and take a look back on the decade's champions. The Patriots mopped up 3 of the 10 wins, with Green Bay, New York Giants, Baltimore, Seattle, Denver, Philadelphia, and Kansas City all winning one. There were blown leads, blowouts, and big upsets over the years. So, Drink, who is your best Super Bowl team in the past decade?
Oh, you know what it is. I've been waiting on this all day. It's time for me to go ahead and drop some of this Hennessy in the streets, baby. And I'm going to go with the 2013 Seattle Seahawks. Oh, yeah. That defense was nastier than drinking Kool-Aid with no sugar. That's how nasty they was.
Oh, God. That was good. That was good.
Here's the deal. I'm going to go ahead and take y'all back right now. You know, I wish I had like some graphic designs that I can make like a flashback. But here's the go. This is how I knew it was going to be crazy. We just go back and look at the coin flip. Now, before the coin flip, this game was matched up number 1 defense against number 1 offense. The Broncos was off the chain. Peyton Manning couldn't throw a bad pass this season. He was just off the chizzy. And then you got Seattle that was number 1 defense, but we didn't see what was going to, happen in the Super Bowl. We didn't see that coming, even though they was, named the number 1 defense in the NFL. Joe Namath, he go flip the coin, and he even messed that up because he never let the referee even ask what they was gonna pick. Like, he just go flip the coin. Referee catch the coin in the air. He's like, "Hey Joe, come on, man. I gotta ask them heads or tails, man. What you doing? Oh, yeah, all right, man. What up? Boom, flip the coin. Seattle wins. Seattle say we want to put the defense on the field first. Oh, we defer and put the oh yeah, you knew the smoke was coming in. They wanted to put their number 1 defense on there to show the Broncos what time it was. All right, boom. Kick the ball off. Never get it. Very first play. 12 seconds into the game.
They didn't have to show them.
12 hot ones into the game. We see the ball go flying over Peyton Manning's head, and he's like, "Oh, it's going to be a long day at the office, folks. It is going to be a long day at the office." So 12 seconds into the game, we already got a 2-zippo lead. How about that? Then, boom, they kick the ball off. To Denver's defense credit, right? Their defense played pretty doggone well. Wasn't better than Seattle in this exact game, but it was pretty good nonetheless. Go down, Seattle goes, boom, kick a field goal. So it's 5-0, right? And then, assuming possession, listen, if I was a DB coach and I was telling my young DBs, hey, you got to set the tone for a game, the tape I'm going to put on is that Cam Chancellor hit to Demaryius Thomas. You talking about setting the tone for a game? Get you some of that. If you ain't seen it, go ahead and Google it, YouTube it. I mean, that set a tone. Oh, Demaryius Thomas was picking his numbers up off the ground. He smacked them. After that, I felt like the feeling of the whole entire game was just like, meh, yeah. And that's what it seemed like. People had to remember this, so I don't drag this out too long. Russell Wilson only threw for 206 yards in that game. It wasn't all that spectacular. Oh, by the way, Marshawn Lynch wasn't even the leading rusher. You know who the leading rusher for that team was? Don't worry about it, I'll tell you. Percy Harvin. That was the leading rusher. Oh, by the way, Percy Harvin, this was probably only the 3rd game he played all season, by the way, because he was hurt for the majority of the season. That's neither here nor there. That's tell you how wild this game was. They scored 43 points, and the offense kind of got to just drag their tail. That defense, listen, Demaryius Thomas got to the point where he was just like, he got the one pass, and I was telling Jay this before. And we thinking, oh, okay, yeah, Denver really get something on. And here comes Byron Maxwell, the unforgotten guy in the Legion of Boom. He comes on up, punch it out. and Peyton Manning looking like, man, listen here, I'm about to retire. This is some bull crap right here. This is some bull crap here. Go with that. Let's talk about passes to, his second leading guy at the time, which was Julius Thomas. He come across the middle. He pulling the alligator arms because he don't want no smoke because he seen what Cam Chancellor did earlier in the game. He didn't want no smoke either. So he kind of alligator on. You got C.J. Anderson over there crying at halftime because he knew what time it was. He knew this thing was over. And hey, they left some souls out there. So without further ado, we're gonna go with this 2013 Seattle Seahawks. You know, said young drippy drippy. All right, and if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. They got a 7-minute highlight recap. Get you some of that, and that's what it was. Over to you, Jay.
Yeah, if you're talking about what was the most dominant performance in the Super Bowl in the past decade, you're just going by that one game. I think it's a pretty clear-cut W for those Seattle Seahawks because it gives me no pleasure to say that because that was a tough evening. For some context, if you recall, there were several moments in that game that they were just bad. When your center snaps the ball over your quarterback's head for a game-opening safety, that is not a good look. And then you're absolutely right. I felt the same way. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I did forget this key point. I overlooked this in my notes. I was talking about how Seattle scored in 12 seconds to start the game. In the second half, they also scored in 12 seconds with the kickoff from Percy Harvin.
That's right. Yep. By that time I was no longer viewing the action. I'm gonna tell you when I checked out of the game. I held on as long as I could, but yeah, the second moment was that Cam Chancellor hit on Demaryius Thomas, and that was actually the moment where I was like, well, they're clearly the more physical team and are imposing their will on this Denver Bronco high-flying number one offense in the history of football at that time. That's how great that offense was. But in terms of physicality and imposing their will, the Seattle defense just took it to these guys. And then I believe it was 15-0 at the time. Or it might have been 15 or 16. The Broncos were on this about 12-play, 38-yard drive or something. Just the slowest, most dink and dunk, just nonsensical drive. And then at one point, Peyton Manning gets hit. He throws the ball. It just, I don't know, like a slingshot straight up in the air. Malcolm Smith comes down with it at about his own 35. By the time he got to the Denver 35, I was watching a Harry Potter movie because I just couldn't take no more. But hey, you're so right. That Seattle defense, they were outstanding. They were historically great. They're one of the best defenses of this decade. When I look at the totality of a season and I take that into consideration, I really like that 2017 Eagles team. I really, really do. The team that beat the New England Patriots with Nick Foles handling his business the last 3 games of the regular season and into the playoffs. They were 13-3 that season, first seed in the NFC. Carson Wentz, if you recall, he was, before Patrick Mahomes came along, Carson Wentz was that dude who was just taking
the MVP candidate that year.
Right. And if he'd have stayed healthy, he would have most certainly been the MVP. He had 33 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions. Their rushing attack was absolutely outstanding. They had LeGarrette Blount. They picked up Jay Ajayi about midway through the year. Corey Clement was doing things for him. On the outside, they had Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar. That's back when he was actually catching passes. He caught 62 balls and had 8 touchdowns. Zach Ertz and Brent Selleck were your tight ends. So, hey, they had Torrey Smith. They had a lot of weapons out there. And that's one of the things you got to think about. When as great as Nick Foles was, you have to take into consideration he was still a backup. So that speaks to how great the rest of that team was, that they were able to prop him up and help him on their way to success throughout that postseason run. And then defensively, we talked about Malcolm Jenkins earlier. He was handling business on the back end of this Philadelphia defense. You had Fletcher Cox, Ronald Darby was out there, Nigel Bradham, Michael Kendricks, Brandon Graham. The list goes on and on. Just a great team on both sides of the ball, and the offensive line was great. Offensive line been very good for years now with Lane Johnsons and Jason Peters and Jason Kelsey's. So much talent up and down that football field. Wentz, Ertz, Cox, and Jenkins were your Pro Bowlers. They were third in scoring offense. They were fourth in scoring defense. They were well balanced. And if you recall, throughout that playoff run, that was Chris Long was out there wearing the dog heads for the underdog because nobody believes in us and all that. If you remember, the Minnesota Vikings came off the Minnesota Miracle when Marcus Williams had a stroke on the field and Stephon Diggs wandered down the field for that last second touchdown. Come to think of it, that's probably the last moment he was really happy being there, because then Kirk Cousins came to town. That's neither here nor there. But Minnesota, I thought, would win that game, and Philadelphia smoked them 38-7, just completely whitewashed them. And then Nick Foles, the next in the Super Bowl, puts up 41 and outplays Tom Brady, even though Brady threw for 500 yards. I like the Seahawks.
I was gonna say, it's funny you say outplayed him, because he even used a play to show him that he was better than him. Remember they did what was it called, the Philadelphia or something, where the Philly special, where Tom Brady was too slow to catch his. But
oh yeah, oh my gosh, was that in the same game?
Yeah, that was the same game.
Yeah, that was
same game.
Yeah, not one of Brady's finer moments, but. Yeah, with all those things in mind, and due to the fact that the Eagles roster was good enough to help a backup quarterback to a Super Bowl MVP, I think the Eagles have a great argument as being the best Super Bowl team this decade.
Good choice. I like it.
Yeah, man. That will forever be in the lore of NFL history. Is that year Nick Foles just did the thing, and of course, like you said, against who he beat. I mean, we're talking about the dynasty that he beat in that year. I mean, they were like, oh, maybe the Patriots are done. Maybe is this it?
Yeah. Hey, and to that point, the same credit that we give these New York Giants teams for, they beat the Patriots. If you go back and look at that 2011 Giants team, they were not very good. They had a negative point differential in the regular season before they all of a sudden got red hot in the playoffs.
Yeah, as far as the overall team, I do lean towards the 13 Seahawks. It's just when you look at this team, man, top to bottom. I mean, the season they had, and there's a little bit of narrative and a little bit of just the raw talent. I mean, you're talking about the narrative. Pete Carroll came over there. We all know he did at USC at his time there, but of course that ended a little rocky. He comes to the NFL. We've seen a lot of coaches in the college ranks not make it in the NFL. Even Nick Saban. I mean, hey, why not? As an example. But, he comes here, he starts building this team, and I like that they built through defense. That's what I like. I've always been kind of a defense guy, and that they build this crazy good defense. They work on it, and then you get Russell Wilson, who's a guy you just like. He's so easy to root for, so easy to like him, even today, And then you just have this culmination of talent on both sides of the ball, because a lot of these teams you can look at, outside of the Patriots teams, which sometimes you can lean on, that's Bill Belichick coaching them, whatever. You can look at a lot of teams that have great defenses and they had enough on offense, or great offenses with enough on defense, like we just saw this past year with the Chiefs. But this is a team that you look at top to bottom, you go, my God. I mean, there are, as good as they were on offense with beast mode and all these receivers, Doug Baldwin, Golden Tate. And then you look at the defense, and that defense is still being copied today. I mean, we realized it modernized the 4-3 defense, and people and coaches to this day are still copying and working off that defensive template that these guys made this many years ago. And of course, when you're the first one to do it, everyone follows suit. But I think all those things combined might push me more to the Seahawks. I feel like if you put these two teams on the field in a neutral, their own game, just pretend everyone's in their prime, I think the Seahawks would do enough on defense to win the game, but it would be really close. And then just the narrative of Russell Wilson, franchise guy, winning the second season, and the fact that Seahawks won, that was their first Super Bowl in the modern deal. That was their first Super Bowl. So everything considered, I lean towards the Seahawks, but man, these are two teams that they're always going to be. I mean, not just in the 2010s, but even beyond that, they're two teams that you're going to remember for a long time.